Majo, John, Ned, and Juanito, sitting in the doorway of my tiny house in Acumal, Mexico, on Sunday, Domingo 31 Marzo, the last day of March. And I'm reflecting on differences and the way different cultures reply to differences. And after 2 years in Mexico, what have I been learning about the Mexican people and about human differences? And what have I learned at other parts of my life? One particularly non-Mexican cultural thing I've bumped up against down here is that the Facebook page for the Playa del Carmen expats is mostly expats, mostly Germans and French and Americans and Canadians, but a handful of middle-class Spanish people who have fallen very far from the tree, who do not observe the classic Mexican norms that I've learned in 2 years in Mexico. Sweet, non-confrontive, very respectful, definitely respectful of elders. That page, certain segments of it anyway, is incredibly combative and dismissive and insulting, mocking, even by people with Spanish last names. I have dared to say on there, your reply shows instantly that you are one shitty Mexican who has lost track of his roots, or you would never mock me for being old. And you would never disrespect the experiences, the honest experiences I'm sharing, which maybe you never have. Maybe you grew up in Mexico, but you have always been in the Riviera Maya, which is so different than the rest of Mexico. One thing I have observed is that middle-class people in Mexico often become as bad as middle-class, the worst of middle-class people in the U.S. Now, the reason this is all coming forward to me now is that when I was waiting at the poor person's hospital in Playa del Carmen yesterday, I heard on the radio a story about an earthquake in Myanmar, which used to be Burma. And standing right there at the receptionist's desk, I shot a video. It was a 2-minute video. I could have shot a 1-hour video because that's how long it took. She never came back. And the same security guard who walked me over there and said, wait here. He said, what are you still doing here, in Spanish? I said, I don't know. Nobody's come back. And he went and found somebody. But I said in that video that Myanmar, Burma, actually means something to me because in my 30s, my martial arts teacher was fresh from Burma and went back to Burma and brought back his lovely wife, Gori. So the title of the video is Nothing Makes the World Seem So Spacious as to Have Friends at a Distance. I think that's Walt Whitman or somebody. And by knowing people from Burma, I had an emotional response strong enough that it took me right outside of my own survival fears because I'm actually kind of not sure I'm going to die myself. That gave me courage to reach out to my Bosnian daughter-in-law, who's not talking to me, but I did a curveball because I know her dad. Her dad was a Facebook friend of mine. We liked each other. And her aunt and uncle who lived down the street, who actually were her age, housed me several times when I went to visit my son, who wants nothing to do with me now. And I've been dying for a chance to say to her dad on Facebook, I can't help but think that once in a while you guys wonder how I am. I want you to know I'm great, miss Terry and the grandkids like crazy, but I'm doing good. And I've had 2 great years in Mexico, and it's not clear that I have much more time left, but it's been a great run. So I sent that to her. And it wasn't, can you get Terry to talk to me? No, it was just, thank you. Because she entered my life. My son, who is biracial himself, loved people with differences. His girlfriends were all Slavic or something. And Alma and her family are refugees. She came here as a teenager, having survived the war in Bosnia, where her people, because she's Islamic by faith and by genetics, were being exterminated in that war. Now, I know our stance these days is we don't have time for all that. Make America first again. Come on, let's get back to what America always was, which is white and Christian, right? So there in the lobby of the poor person's hospital in Playa del Carmen, I heard something on the radio that reminded me it's not all about me. Whether I'm a gringo or whether I shocked people by introducing myself with a Spanish last name. And for the longest time I said, I'm the most interracial white middle class man you'll ever find because I know more about hip hop music from raising a black teenager. Partly true. And I marched with Dr. King, and I marched over George Floyd, and I had Breonna Taylor's picture in my car posted prominently on the driver's side of my camper van the whole time I was in Louisville. I believe in differences. And I also believe in claiming my North American heritage. And once in a while, I'll even say, I'm about to go North American on you. I'm going to be direct in a way you're going to hate, but I have to tell the truth. The thing I left out of my note to my daughter-in-law, which I'll never hear back from, was here in Acamal, Mexico, a very prominent family run the Gillies Tequilaville restaurant and grocery store and they've been letting me run a tab in their grocery store every month, and then I pay it when I get my check. They are Slavic. Now, in Mexico, there's not a lot of racial genetic mixing like in the U.S., Italians, Irish, Poles, but there is some. A big difference is the fact that they all have Slavic names like Farid, Amir, Hafet, Yamet. It wouldn't even occur to a Mexican to think, oh, well, maybe we ought to not like them. They're not like us. No, they're Acamal people. They're our people. And just in general, Mexican stance on differences is, what business is it of mine? And the other thing that's really special about the Riviera Maya is the incredible mixing of the indigenous, which you don't find much in the U.S. When, what's-her-face, Madeleine Warren said that she was part Native American, Trump went crazy and still calls her Pocahontas. Those other crazy people who don't belong here. I thought we got rid of them a long time ago. Well, Mayan heritage is everywhere here. And Marcos, my landlord, and Ruby, his wife, and Lupita, my hair cutter, and Guadalupe, my server at the restaurant, are all Mayan. They all grew up speaking Mayan before they ever learned to speak Spanish. And it is true that in Mexico they were oppressed and exterminated because the Spaniards came in and said they're barbaric. And there's still crazy things like the Wikipedia page for Isla de Sacrificios, the island off of Boca del Rio, where I learned to kayak. The Wikipedia page says, well, it's called Isla Sacrificios because when the Spaniards came, they found fresh remains of human sacrifice on bloody altars. It's not true, but Wikipedia thinks it's true, and even the locals will parrot, well, that's where it came from. No. It didn't take me 10 minutes of online research to say, oh, well, that's not quite true, probably. It looks like it was a burial grounds where they used to prepare bodies for death. But it's very convenient for us to say, those savages. But here in the Riviera Maya, everything starts with X. And I was saying, why is it X Correct? And why is Myrna's coffee shop start with X Myrna? Well, X is a term of respect. It's like sir or senor. It's everywhere. Marcos said, I think 10% of the people in Akumal are Mayan. A German expat I talked to said, I think everybody in this town is fucking Mayan. I think Marcos is closer to the truth. But when I was in the hospital in Playa del Carmen, my really nice Spanish roommate, or next door neighbor, Roher, said, yeah, I'm Mayan. I'm Mayan. I spoke Mayan before I spoke Spanish. Proud of it. And now even the government, one of the things I love to say about Mexico is the most Christian country in the world, like 93% or 73% identify Catholic, but maybe 10% actually practice it. They're mostly practicing various Jehovah's Witness or Pentecostal this, Pentecostal that, or nothing. But they still call themselves Catholic and will go to church sometimes. But at the very top, they say, we can't claim to be a Christian country because what about the indigenous? We have woken up and we know we need what they have. Whatever it is they have, we want it. And if you get to hang out around indigenous people like I have, there is something special because of the roots they come from. And part of my white American background is I like to talk, and us men, we like to talk. When I taught diversity in corporations, we used to teach. A man shows he really believes what he's saying by speaking for a long time. Women have been conditioned to take turns, and if there's 10 people in the room, you don't take more than 1/10 of the time. Well, I'm a guy. But I have learned a thing or two about it. And in spite of being a guy and working in corporations, I'm going to shut up. Now, nunc ahora. And el momento presento. And I'll give several other examples, or I will just shut up. Thank you, God. Got it. Over and out.